Hi, everyone. Welcome to the monthly Azure Arc community meetup, September 27th. This is going to be the last meetup before Ignite. So a lot of things are happening, as you can imagine, before Ignite, a lot of development going on. But we do have some updates, before Ignite, just going to make sure everyone are up to speed with the latest and greatest. I want to start with a bit of housekeeping today, and just gonna share some changes that we're making. Like I mentioned in the previous meetups, after taking over from Chris, all these meetups, we're gonna start making some changes, as you will see in the way we are communicating, basically the communication around the meetup. You're gonna see this going even broader. So again, thanks everyone for your patience. I hope, I see people joining, so I see that people got the invite, so everything is okay. Sometimes I'm a bit worried when sending this to bajillion people, sometimes things get lost in translation. So I'm happy that everyone got the invite and everything is okay. And I see the speakers starting to join. So that's awesome. Let me, we do have a packed agenda today. So let me just kind of go over the agenda, and then I'll kick us off. So I'll talk about a bit of the housekeeping that I was mentioning. We have some updates around Azure Arc-enabled servers, and also a research or Microsoft research survey that we want to share with you. Azure Arc-enabled SQL Server updates, AKS on Windows Server, and Azure Stack HCI, Windows Admin Center in Azure. We have also a bit of a chat going on with Windows Server and Active Directory. We want to get some feedback, get some thoughts. The PMs are going to join us soon. And we also have some updates around Azure Arc-enabled Kubernetes, specifically with GitOps. As always, feel free to put some questions in the chat. We're going to have some time at the end for Q&A, but again, all the speakers are in the chat, so if you have any questions, feel free to post those in the chat. I'm going to look at the chat later on. Cool. So let's talk for a second about a bit of the housekeeping. Today, no Jumpstart updates, as we are getting ready for Ignite with some major releases. We just didn't want to force minor updates on you, so we're gonna come back in the next meetup post Ignite. I'll talk about it more towards the end. So switching to GitHub. So as you can see, if you saw my communication around how we are planning to move forward with this meetup, basically till today, we were publishing the decks, we are publishing the recordings on the Teams channel. Moving forward, we're gonna move this into an open source model. Basically, if you haven't watched my communication, or you didn't saw that, basically this is gonna be the new GitHub repository that we're gonna have, and things will get better with this repository. We're gonna have a bit more content there. But for now, moving forward, the recordings and the decks for this meetup are going to get published on GitHub. As you can imagine, the content that you will get in this meetup is a non-NDA content. So that means that it's content that is out for grabs for the public, things that we can share outside of Microsoft. So just want to make sure setting expectations. In this README, pretty straightforward. In this README, you have this table here. If you want to share that with your peers, with your colleagues, whatnot, you can point them into the repository. You have the link for joining the Teams call, basically a link for the presentations, a link for the recordings, and also the ICS file for basically add to your calendar the series for this meetup. Right now, as you can see, we already have the first meetup, the previous meetup in the GitHub repository, and also the recording. So again, moving forward, everything will go into this repository. If you have any questions, please post those in the chat. I'll answer everything. But the goal here is to start, going broader with this meetup. It's not going to be office hours. That's not the goal for this meetup. It's basically providing you with all the latest and greatest and the updates that we have for the community moving forward. Cool. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing, and I think that taking over either Arnav or Ryan, gentlemen, who wants to present? Yep. And I'm gonna stop sharing.
Sounds good. Hey, folks. Oh, do you want to continue presenting the slides?
Feel free to take the screen, Arnav.
Oh, I was asking if you wanted to continue presenting the slides.
Sure.
Continuity.
Yeah,
cool.
No problem.
So just wanted to provide some brief updates from the Arc-enabled server side, and then hand it over to Ryan, who will be doing a little bit of a mini demo to show some of our new auto-manage with Arc-enabled server capabilities with our onboarding script. So it's really exciting. We wanted to surface some agent updates that we had. First, with interactive onboarding, we're now actually going to be surfacing the local web browser to authenticate with AAD instead of the device code experience for the interactive login experience. Another enhancement we have is with resource group creation. If a resource group is provided to AZCM agent Connect and it doesn't already exist, we'll now be provisioning and creating that resource group to eliminate some of the frictions with onboarding. We've also added additional disto support, specifically RHEL 8 and FIPS mode, and Ubuntu 22.04 with additional package signing for Debian. So you'll continue to see a lot of these Linux investments that we're making across new distro supports, especially to this new quarter. Finally, we wanted to note the general availability of Mooncake for Arc-enabled servers. So that's availability in the China regions, China East 2 and China North 2. Final call out we have is with our configuration manager onboarding option. That's now going to be surfaced in Azure portal. So you can take the generated Arc-enabled server service principal-based script for at-scale onboarding, and you can actually get content and guidance for using a custom task sequence or a device collection to run that script using Configuration Manager console. You'll also be seeing an update with respect to Ansible. Oh, sorry, is there a problem?
No, there's no problem. I'm going to mute everyone.
All right, no worries. Looks like folks are very excited about that scale onboarding. And like people are already really excited with the onboarding and just can't hold their excitement with their comments. So great to hear. Now I'll hand it over to Ryan to do a sneak peek of the auto-manage capabilities with Arc-enabled server.
Thanks, Arnav. Leo, if you could just move on to the next slide. So for folks on the call, we've been talking about auto-manage and Arc being better together for quite some time now. We're glad to announce that we are now starting to integrate the two products such that when you connect a server to Azure Arc, you can immediately associate it with an auto-manage configuration profile. And this is very exciting because if you've played around with Arc, you kind of know, unlike a normal Azure resource where you submit an ARM template and get to pick all the properties right away and customize it, with an Arc server, you're starting with our agent running on a server on-prem with a hopefully very limited Azure user context. So there's not a ton that you can do to automatically sign up for services at that point unless you've already set up Azure policies. So we're pushing auto-manage here as a great way to go and set up the desired state of all those features you want to enable on those Arc-enabled servers and be able to say at the time you provision Arc on that server, here's the auto-manage profile I want to use, whether that is a built-in one like production or dev test or a custom one that you've made unique to your organization's requirements. So this is a sneak peek. It's not something that is in the Azure portal yet. We'd like you to try it out, give us your feedback before we kind of send this broadly. So definitely looking forward to hearing from you. But the basic flow here is you'll go to your auto-manage screen in the Azure portal and copy the ID for whatever configuration profile you want to use. If you can advance the slide, the next step is you will go and generate a Arc onboarding script. Any of the existing scripts will do, could be at scale, single server, doesn't really matter. But the important part is you'll see line 19 there at connect command, where we go and actually configure all the properties of the server. If we can advance the screen once more, what you'll do is you'll just add a new parameter, auto-manage profile, to that line. And when you do that, it will tell us when we go in and connect the server, hey, go ahead and automatically put auto-manage on this machine. And then auto-manage will kick in and start deploying all those other agents and extensions and capabilities that you want on that server. How are we doing for time, Leor?
You're good.
We got like a minute left?
Yes.
Cool. All right. I can do a demo then. Hooray. Let me head over here. Oh, no. Is this blinking for you guys?
No, you're good, Ron.
Oh, okay. Well, it's blinking like crazy for me. All right. So this is an example of one of those scripts I downloaded from the portal. What I did is if I head over to my connect command, at the very end, I added the auto-manage profile for the built-in production profile. So I added that here. With that one change in place, I can go ahead and run my script. And when I do, it'll go through the normal Arc onboarding. One of the things you'll notice is we've been making a lot of quality of life improvements to the Arc install script lately. So if you're still using an old script, definitely recommend generating a new one to start getting some of those new benefits. One of them right here is you no longer have to do device code if your server has a browser on it. So you can actually do an interactive login like I just did. And we will see here, it will chug along. We're working on making the progress bar work better in PowerShell ISC and other legacy consoles. But nevertheless, behind the scenes, this machine is now connected to Azure. And if I head over to my Azure portal, refresh here, let's see, community call demo. Here is the machine I just connected. And then if I head down to auto manage, it is going to take about 15 seconds, but it should show up here very shortly as having connected a profile. Everything's kind of just loading because this machine just got hooked up to Azure. But
by the way,
anyways,
you are flickering a bit, right?
Okay, yeah, this is not going super great. So I will send a screenshot in a bit to prove that this worked. But anyways, we're really excited about this. If you all could give it a try, send us your feedback. This will eventually become a default option when you generate the scripts in the Azure portal. That's it for Arc Server. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Gail, take us away. Do you want me to advance the slide?
Yes, please. Hi, everyone. I'm Gail. I'm a UX researcher for leading our UX research. And as you can see, we have a lot going on. Very excited about the Arc Server progress. But we also continuously looking for your feedback. And so just a reminder, as some of you may see, I already put it in the team chat, but just a reminder, we are still looking for your feedback. So for this particular survey, we are looking for the opportunity to further make introducing or adopting Azure Arc-enabled server easier for you or your clients. So we would love to hear your thoughts, but basically we are trying to look into ways we can make doing your job easier. And the way to participate, I'm going to put it in the chat as well for ease of access. But basically, we have in this survey, it's about a short survey, about 15 minutes, like 12 to 15 minutes long. And we are still looking for feedback till end of this Friday. And on the other hand, we also will appreciate if you're open to retweet this post to further share this opportunity with your network. And if you are external guest, you might be eligible to enter one of the $300 drawing, just as appreciate your participation. And there are more details in official rules, so please check out the link and to see if you have a chance to join our sweepstake. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. You should have opened with the $300, you know? I mean, I'm just saying. All right, cool. Thanks so much, Gail. Moving forward. Raj, do you want to take the screen or do you want me to advance the slides?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, Raj.
Okay, I can take the screen.
All right, please do.
Yep. Okay, let me share my desktop. Okay, let me know if you once you start seeing my screen.
You're good.
Okay, excellent. So hello everyone, my name is Raj Pochiraju and I'm a principal program manager in Azure Arc Data Services. So for the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to give you an overview of Azure Arc-enabled SQL Server. Rain talked about, auto manage feature in the Arc server, the way that you can really maximize the benefits of Arc enabling your servers. And if you are running SQL servers, then you can enable Arc it to the SQL server as well, so that you can really manage your SQL servers from the Azure. So basically, let me first introduce some of the offerings that we have in Azure Arc Data Services. So in the very first one is Azure Arc-enabled SQL Server. So basically, if you're running your workloads on a SQL Server database engine, and then you can really start leveraging the cloud services without really going through the migration by enabling it with Arc, so that you can really start managing and then securing your SQL Server from the Azure itself. And you can do that at scale. But then the other scenario is that, if you're really running your database services in your own infrastructure, but at the same time, you really want to modernize these database services, for example, SQL Server or PostgreSQL, by bringing the platform as a service offerings to your own existing infrastructure. That is where these Arc-enabled SQL management instance and as well as the Arc-enabled PostgreSQL will really help you. So basically, essentially, if you cannot really migrate to the cloud, but you still have an appetite to completely modernize it, we bring platform as a services to you, to your own existing infrastructure, so that you can have a consistent experience. Otherwise, you're running your workloads on the platform as a service on a public cloud, and you will have a fully automated evergreen SQL and as well as the PostgreSQL, and you will have a cloud billing consistency, even extending to your on-premises infrastructure as well, right? So these are the two distinct offerings. One is Arc-enabled SQL Server. The other one is Arc-enabled managed instance and as well as the PostgreSQL. So that's kind of a difference between these two offerings. Now the question is, I want to really help you even more to really help you to determine which of the workloads goes to which of these different offerings that we have in across Azure SQL on the Azure and as well as in the hybrid environment, right? So you can really use this simple flowchart algorithm to decide. So let me walk through this algorithm that really help you to determine which workload belong to or which workload that you want to choose for a specific deployment option that we got here. So in case if you have your workloads that are really ready to migrate to Azure, which is a public cloud, if you don't have any blockers, and especially in the case of scenarios where you need to really retire your data centers, and then you really want to migrate them to the cloud, and then you also want to achieve some limitless scale and leverage end-to-end security, then your option would be migrating to public cloud, which is the Azure SQL. Actually, there are multiple offerings in the Azure SQL. You can really deploy your SQL Server databases onto SQL servers which are running on the VMs, or you can leverage Azure SQL database managed instance and as well as the Azure SQL databases and really achieve the platform as a service features. So that's one way that you can go. So basically, if your workloads are ready to migrate to the public cloud, you can really migrate to Azure SQL. If you cannot really migrate to Azure, and if you really need to keep your workloads outside of the Azure, that could be on-prem, that could be a different cloud, then there are two options. One option is that in the case you're really running your workloads with the legacy services like reporting services, analysis services, integration services, and also if your workload really require a server-based access that you need to really be able to access Windows files and as well as the SQL Server databases, and you cannot really containerize your applications and databases, or in specific scenarios where you're running a workload supported by some ISV vendor and that is not supported for migrating to the Azure, then the best option is that just enable your SQL Server where you are and then just Arc-enable it. That way you can keep your SQL Server wherever it is being deployed. You don't need to really migrate, but at the same time, you can start leveraging the Azure services to secure, manage, and then at scale for your SQL servers, right? That's the option that where you go. But if you still want to run your workloads in your own existing infrastructure, but at the same time, you really want to modernize that entire workload, and you really want to get to the extent where you want to really enjoy all the platform as a service benefits without even migrating to the public cloud, then the best option is to migrate to Arc-enabled SQL managed instance or PostgreSQL, depending on where your databases are running. So this is the specific algorithm or the flowchart that really help you to make that kind of a decision, which workloads goes to which deployment options. Given that, with those deployment options, I want to really double click on Arc-enabled SQL Server. Essentially what it really means. So basically you are connecting your SQL Server to Azure and manage from the cloud, regardless where your SQL Server is being deployed. That's the main thing, right? And by doing so, what are the capabilities that you can start leveraging from the cloud, basically, right? Once you enable your SQL Server to Arc-enabled SQL Server, you can really run a SQL assessment, which comes as a free service for you, where it really help you to health monitor your SQL Server, identify any risks that you might be running into, and then provide you the mitigation steps. So it really help you to find out the SQL servers which might be running in risks, and then start applying those mitigation steps as by Microsoft best practice recommendations. And then the other advantage is that you can have a single global view of all your SQL servers, regardless where they are deployed, in a single plane of glass. So that's one of the challenges our DBS told us, like our SQL servers spread across multiple deployment options, multiple infrastructures. And I really want to have a single place where I can really go and then get that inventory and also the application dependencies, so that I can really start effectively managing them. So that's where inventory management is being enabled. And then you can also secure your SQL servers at scale by enabling all your SQL servers with Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So this is the best way that you can really safeguard your SQL Server environment without even migrating, just by connecting to the Azure Arc, right? And then we also integrated your SQL servers with Azure Active Directory, so that you can now enable a single sign-on access to your SQL Server estate, regardless where they are deployed. We support the SQL servers which are running on Windows and as well as the Linux. Soon, we're going to enable database as a resource as well, which means is that not only that you are going to get the inventory at the SQL Server instance level, but you are also going to get the specific inventory at the database level as well, like database options, the specific recovery models that are set for databases. You can get a vast variety of rich data insights from your SQL Server estates by enabling to Arc. Now, quickly, how does it works actually, right? So I'm going to expand this slide. So imagine that your SQL servers which are running outside of the Azure here. The very first step to enable with Arc is you want to first onboard with Arc-enabled server. That's the very first step, which is you can call that as more of a parent object. And once it is Arc-enabled, then you can really Arc-enable the SQL Server by installing a SQL Server extension on top of it. So once you enable Arc-enable the SQL Server, then you will see two resources on your Azure portal. One is Arc-enabled server and Arc-enabled SQL Server. Now that these two resources are projected on the Azure, now you can really bring the power of the Azure to those two services, which includes you can really enroll to Microsoft Defender to secure your SQL servers, and enroll SQL Server best practice assessment, and many more other investments that we are really investing into this Arc-enabled SQL Server to begin with in future. And we also enabled you that you can really onboard all these SQL servers at scale, so that if you have thousands of SQL servers, you can really enable them at scale as well. So we provide scale options that you can really manage and tell your data estate to begin with. And then all the communication between the SQL servers and as well as the Azure goes through an encrypted connection through port 443. Pretty soon we are going to be supporting the private endpoints as well. So with that, I want to quickly demo. How much time I have, Leo, for demo?
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Excellent. So there are two capabilities that I really want to demo. The advantage of enabling your SQL servers to Arc-enable SQL servers. I talked about SQL assessment, which is a best practice assessment that you can really enable at scale on your SQL server. So what does it do actually by enabling this? So let me access to this. So the SQL assessment scan across your SQL Server environments, and then pretty much report the health of your SQL Server in each of these areas. Think about security and compliance, availability, business continuity, performance and scalability. There are and many more areas. So it will look into all. It will look your SQL Server in a more holistic way, and then identify how much your SQL Server is healthy in each of these areas. And not only that, it is also going to identify the risk, that SQL Server which is running into any type of risks in each of these areas. And then it also attaches score to each of these risks so that you can really prioritize these recommendations basically, right? And once you really prioritize these recommendations and start applying the mitigation steps that are provided, you're making your SQL Server much more healthier. So this is the best practice recommendation that we really automated at scale based on all the experiences that we have had that really worked well for customers to manage their SQL Server environment optimally. When we talk to a lot of DBAs, 90% to 95% of the time, they spend their time to make SQL Server healthy, basically, or identify the SQL Server environments which are running into risks. Now that we completely automated that, you can really run at scale across your SQL servers and prioritize your SQL servers that you need to really mitigate so that you can really maintain your SQL servers much optimal way, right? So that's the one capability that you can leverage for free. The other capability that I want to showcase is Microsoft Defender for cloud. The soon that you enable Arc-enabled SQL Server, then you can really secure your SQL servers using the Microsoft Defender, just like how you would secure your Azure resources in general. So Microsoft Defender will scan across your SQL Server environments and then identify any of the attacks, proactively identify any attacks that could happen, or if there are any vulnerabilities in your security configurations, it proactively detect them and then provide you the mitigation steps. There are cases where it can automatically apply some mitigations, but otherwise, if it cannot really auto-mitigate, then it will give you a detailed step-by-step guidance for you that you can really make your environment much more secure. For example, one single example before we run out of time, the XPCMD shell, a famous extended stored procedure. Microsoft recommends to disable this unless your workloads really absolutely need that. The reason is that any hacker who use this XPCMD shell to compromise your operating system to begin with. So we identify this as a security risk, and then we also give you a mitigation steps how to address this. And then given we also give a query so that if you really want to identify all your SQL servers which are running into this risks, you can execute this query across your SQL servers and then mitigate all those SQL servers to begin with, right? That's how you can manage and secure your SQL servers using the Arc-enabled SQL Server by bringing the power of Azure to your existing infrastructure wherever the SQL Server is being deployed. And also you have a consistent experience across on-prem, private clouds, any other third-party clouds, and Azure, a consistent experience managing your SQL servers and databases. So that's the power of Arc-enabled SQL Server.
Thanks so much, Raj.
Yeah, thank you.
Good presentation, good demo. Thanks so much. Moving on, I think we have Pragya. Are you on?
Yes, Lior. Do you mind sharing the slides for me, please?
Of course, not a problem. There you go.
Awesome, thank you. So hi everybody, this is Pragya and I'll be talking about the latest release of AKS on Windows Server and Azure Stack HCI. So we shipped our August release and here are some of the important and exciting features which I think everybody should know about. Starting with the SDN support. So SDN is in preview to work with AKS on HCI and Windows Server now. So that's pretty exciting and we are just waiting for it to go into GA. And the other one is the Windows container. So we are moving the Windows container to container D. So we moved our Linux containers workload from Docker shim to container D a few months ago. And generally speaking, Windows containers have been working closely with the open source Windows community to be able to move the containers to container D from Docker shim for a long time. So this has been dependent on the support for Kubernetes 123, and the support for Kubernetes 123 was dependent on CAPI beta support. So that's done there, which is a pretty good news for the team. And then talking about the CAPI beta, we are moving from CAPI alpha to the beta now, and the Kubernetes community has been working on their cloud APIs to support multi-cloud and have stabilized to a production-ready CAPI. So now we have CAPI beta, and so yeah, we have our new support for CAPI beta here, and we have also supported updated our Kubernetes version to 1.23, and that's really exciting because it brings in a lot of other features for us to play with as well. These are the few of the main G8 features in our August release. And along with that, we do have options to configure the number of concurrent downloads. There are a bunch of bug fixes that we did in the last release, like more stable VHT sync experience. We improved our state management, and then we fixed issue when there are duplicate instances of cloud agent serving running in a service running in a cluster. We did release a bunch of other documents after the release, and I have that link in the slide where you can just go and check like how to deploy configuration on AKS HCI using GitOps with Flux v2, and how to disable automatic distribution of data across CSVs on AKS on Azure Stack HCI and Windows Server. So that's about the release. Can we move on to the AKS roadmap, please? The next slide. Yeah, so we are updating our already existing GitHub roadmap. So it has most up-to-date ADO work items, which our team is working on. We believe in maintaining a trustworthy public roadmap, which will help improve customers plan their work items with their timelines. So like right now, we do have a public roadmap in GitHub, but it's not widely used and is pretty out of date. And the plan is the goal is to have our monthly sync call with the field team to be derived out of that public roadmap. So like as it's a public roadmap, anyone, be it any customer, any field people, or anyone with any interest in Kubernetes or AKS HCI in general can just go and have a look at the roadmap and understand what's going on with AKS HCI and can check through the roadmap itself. And we do plan to use that call as a platform to answer any queries and questions along those work items. And we also look forward to uncover any new features and enhancements based on the questions from the attendees. So yeah, it should be up by in the next coming months, a month or two. And yeah, that's all from our side.
Thanks so much, Ranga. All right. Again, for any questions in the chat, Raj, I think, by the way, there was a question on Arc-enabled SQL Server from John on the chat, if you can jump in.
Yeah,
all right.
I cannot access the chart though. We couldn't load the message. It looks like too many charts or something. Yeah, I cannot see the chart.
All right, we'll fix it. We'll get to that in the Q&A. Proceed. Do you want me to take the slides or do you want to present?
Actually, you can keep presenting. I'll probably switch over for a demo in a little bit, but you can keep presenting.
All right.
Hey, folks. Hey, this is Prasida Arora. I'm a PM on the Windows Admin Center team.
Proceed. We can barely hear you. Can you maybe bump up your volume?
Sorry, bump up my volume?
Yeah.
Is this any better?
We'll take what we can.
Okay. Hey, folks. Pretty excited to talk about Windows Admin Center. I'm a PM on the Windows Admin Center team. So as you know, Ryan and Arnav talked about the awesomeness that is Arc-enabled servers and the fact that you can do a ton of more things with Arc-enabled servers. I'm here to talk about just how great and wonderful it is to onboard your Windows Server machines to Azure Arc. So announced just actually a couple of months ago now is a public preview of using Windows Admin Center in the Azure portal to manage your Windows Server Arc-enabled servers or your Azure Stack HCI clusters. And really, ever since its release in 2018, Windows Admin Center has been sort of the solution for managing Windows Server infrastructure running on premises. It has grown to provide, dozens of experiences that make remote investigation and remediation of your servers as easy as possible. And so today we're extending that same tooling to your cloud infrastructure with the public preview of Windows Admin Center in Azure for Arc-enabled servers and Azure Stack HCI clusters. And you'll notice actually for folks that have been following Windows Admin Center in Azure, we actually first released this capability for Azure virtual machines about a year and a bit ago. And now we're extending this capability to support Arc-enabled servers with actually a few key differences. So for folks that are not familiar with Windows Admin Center, Windows Admin Center provides a set of web-based tools for you to perform entire end-to-end operating system management. So you no longer need to RDP into your machines to do your kind of management tasks like managing your firewall, your registry, looking at your certificates, managing virtual machines or workloads that are running on top of your servers, really all of those end-to-end management tasks that you would need to do. You no longer need to RDP into your machines to do all of those things. Instead, you can actually use Windows Admin Center running in the Azure portal to manage your servers end-to-end. So you can do things like configure, troubleshoot, maintenance tasks, really all the things you would really need to do, including an in-browser RDP session, all within the Azure portal itself. But the big key difference being to use sort of remote management tools, if you think of RDP, if you think of remote PowerShell, if you even think of Windows Admin Center on premises, you've always needed line of sight to your on-premises machines in order to manage them. So, you need either WinRM connectivity, you need a VPN, you need some sort of public IP address, you need some sort of inbound access over some port in order to actually manage your machines. What's incredible about this solution is you can securely manage your servers and clusters without the need for any inbound connectivity. So you don't need a VPN, you don't need a public IP address. You could be, halfway across the world connecting to a machine that's connected to no domain and has no VPN. And as long as it's connected to Azure Arc and has outbound connectivity access, you can do all of your end-to-end OS management tasks. You can open up a PowerShell session, open up an RDP session, view your certificates, really all the things I talked about that Windows Admin Center provides. You can now perform natively in the Azure portal without needing any inbound access to your machines. Furthermore, you actually also no longer need to worry about any sort of password management. You don't have to worry about a local admin account. It really doesn't matter if your Arc-enabled server is connected to AAD, it's connected to AD, if it's part of a work group, it doesn't matter. Windows Admin Center doesn't care. Windows Admin Center provides secure, passwordless authentication using your Azure AD credentials. And probably the best part, it's free. As long as you've onboarded to Azure Arc, you can use Windows Admin Center natively in the Azure portal. Let me quickly show you what this looks like. I believe I have just about a couple minutes here. I'll take over sharing my screen. So whenever folks are able to see my screen, what you'll see here is I have a Windows Server 2019 Data Center Azure Arc-enabled server. It's just running here in the Australia East region. And what you'll see here is there's this Windows Admin Center blade. Again, it's only available for Windows Server instances. So if you have a Linux-based Arc-enabled server, you won't be able to see this blade. But if you're running Windows Server or Azure Stack HCI, you'll see this Windows Admin Center blade. You'll go through a one-time installer setup process. And this is once per Arc-enabled server. So you'll be able to do this at scale using something like Azure Policy, and although not particularly soon, but in the future, you'll also be able to configure this using Azure Auto Manage. So all the stuff that Arnav and Ryan talked about will soon be integrated with this too. You'll hit connect. You'll see it'll ask me for no credentials for my local server. It doesn't really need any credentials to actually manage a local server. So in the past, for folks that might have used this experience, you would remember that you had to enter some local administrator credentials. All of that's gone. You don't need to enter any of that. As long as your AAD identity is part of an Azure RBAC role called Windows Admin Center Administrator Login, that's really all the permissions you need to actually use Windows Admin Center. And then really all the management tasks you need, right? You want to view your certificates. You want to go through your file explorer, firewall, local users and groups, in-browser RDP if you need it, PowerShell, really all the tasks that you really need to perform end-to-end server management is available right here natively in the Azure portal without you having to really leave the Azure portal to do your end-to-end management task. And I'll actually also quickly show this access control group I was talking about. There's a new access control group called Windows Admin Center Administrator Login. So as long as your AAD identity is part of that group, that's actually all the permissions you need to use Windows Admin Center in the Azure portal. Really excited for all of you to try this out. As I mentioned, it's available for both Arc-enabled Windows servers and Azure Stack HCI clusters. Please give it a try out, and honestly, don't hesitate to email me, give me some feedback. We're actually looking to make a bunch of improvements on this as we take this out to general availability. So please feel free to email me and give me some feedback. Lior, if you go back to sharing again, all my contact details are all on there.
Thanks so much. And Cam, I see your hand. I want to give opportunity to all the speakers to just kind of finish the content, and we have a Q&A section at the end, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I just would like to get the email of the last presenter to ask one tiny question about that one. That's all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and folks, I understand that the chat is broken. Really not sure why. We'll troubleshoot that after, but in the Q&A section, I'll make sure to pop the questions to the relevant people for everyone to just be able to.
I wouldn't bother if there was chat. Sorry about this one again.
Yeah, it's all good. Our bad. Not sure why it's broken, but all right. Moving on. Michael.
Good morning or good evening. We have a global audience, so I can't just say good morning. Thank you for the time today. I just wanted a few minutes. I don't have any additional slides. I just wanted to put one on the screen and have some discussion. Lior, it's totally fine if we want to save this one for the end. I just wanted to bring into focus. So a lot of times within the engineering work we're doing, we have to make decisions about prioritization. And that means, you know, if there's 5 things we want to do, we're going to do all 5, but decide in what order are we going to get this work done. A top of mind example for me has been thinking about how you authenticate using SSH to your Arc connected machines. And certainly that includes Linux. SSH is sort of like the common tool for connecting to Linux. So for Linux admins, it's no big surprise. A lot of people don't know that Windows Server and desktop now have SSH included. So it's the client is there by default in all modern versions of Windows Client, and it's, you know, one click away from turning it on. It's just a feature on demand thing for Windows Server. And so for SSH for Arc, and that's part of the provisioning process. So one of the decisions we're making is when it comes to authentication, whenever you're connecting over SSH, you know, traditionally you would use keys, or you might fall back to a username and a password of a local account. But we really want to make it easy to log in and manage machines using your Azure Active Directory accounts. We also know that some people are Arc-enabling servers within their private data centers or hybrid cloud environments that are joined to Windows Server Active Directory, like the Active Directory that we all sort of like grew up with, right? And the way that you implement authentication is actually a little bit different between those two. So in one case, the machine is joined to the domain. The user is logging in using their Windows Server Active Directory account. And that's one type of authentication. The other is where the machine is not domain joined and you are logging in using an Azure AD account. And essentially it's like simulating that Azure AD account into the machine. It doesn't impact, like you don't have to create a local account or anything like that manually. And so I wanted to get feedback from this community about which of those two scenarios is important to you. And it's totally expected that both, like work group scenarios and domain scenarios, are ultimately important. Our question is, if you had to decide which engineering work would come first, which one would you prioritize? Would you say most of my machines are domain joined, so always focus on getting that work done first, and then we'll handle work group machines, you know, a couple months later? Or would you flip that around? Would you say, no, the machines that I'm Arc enabling are mostly work group machines, and you know, we've only got a few domain joined machines, so don't even worry about that. And so I've created a link to a survey. I think it's only got 1 or 2 questions, and that'll be the easiest way to collect in summary all of the votes. But when we get to the part of the discussion where we can have a more open conversation, I'm really interested in your feedback. So thank you for your time, Lior.
Thanks, Michael. And again, apologies, folks, for the chat being broken. Again, not sure why is that, but if you want to interact with, with Michael, or you have any questions, we'll have few more minutes in a couple of minutes when, after we'll present the last topic for today. And then we'll jump on into the Q&A. So Michael, hold tight. We're just going to finish with the topics and then come back to the Q&A.
Sounds great.
And potentially
Thanks.
have that conversation if that's okay.
Great.
Thanks so much. All right, Mayuri, are you on?
Yep, I'm on.
Take
Hey
it.
everyone. Hey everyone, this is Mayuri, and Lior, please do continue to share the slides. It's just one of the slides. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I have a few updates on the GitOps side of things. The first of these updates is the new set of policies, the new set of inbuilt policies that we have created for GitOps Flux v2. This is a new article. The link is here on the right-hand side. I'll also paste it in the chat window for those of you who have access to chat. So these are new set of policies to apply this Flux v2 configuration at scale, depending on the kind of source you have and depending on the kind of authentication you have with that source. So there's one policy to create the Flux v2 extension, and there are other set of policies, which are about, I think, 7 to 8 in number, to create the configuration depending on your case. So please do check it out. This is for Flux v2 exclusively, and we published that around last month. The other side of update I have is on the deprecation. Not sure if we shared this widely previously, but since our GA of Flux v2, since that happened in May 2022, we actually started a deprecation path for Flux v1. So Microsoft has a policy of supporting the existing products, and we have a deprecation. All of these such products, they have a deprecation path for 3 years. So the end of support date for Flux v1 would be May 24th, 2025. And up till then, Microsoft will continue to support any existing, Flux v1 configuration that you may have, or even if you create new ones. The only caveat over there is that there'll be no new feature updates made on Flux v1. So all of the new feature updates, enhancements will be made only on Flux v2. So our guidance to you would be to move to Flux v2 sooner, and rather than waiting for the end of life cycle stage. And like I mentioned, so at this point, we will definitely provide any ongoing support and any maintenance. So if you have any issues, you raise a support ticket, Microsoft will for sure support that. And during this period, the upstream team of vWorks will also continue to fix any major bugs or any security related issues that may come up in Flux v1 during this time frame, and will also support for any new latest the latest Kubernetes versions as they come up. So that rest assured, they'll be during this support of the Flux v1, we will you can continue to use Flux v1 technically. However, we would definitely urge you to move to Flux v2 sooner for all the goodness of Flux v2. That's all I wanted to share. My email address is here on the right-hand side. If you have any questions on how to move from Flux v1 to Flux v2, we can for sure help you there. Yeah, that's all I had, Lior. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marie. All right. Again, folks, apologies for the chat not working. And for some reason, I see your messages, but no one can see others. So I'll just be a proxy here for a second. Just kind of to wrap things up, thanks for all the presenters and thanks everyone for joining. If you want to join this, again, the link, I'm going to share all the links that are in the chat. I'm going to share those in the Teams channel post that meeting, just to make sure that everyone's got everything that we published on the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or post those in the Teams chat that we have for the meetup. Again, bunch of resources. This is pretty standard stuff. And let's move over to Q&A. I do want to, so I'm just going to go by order based on what I saw here. First thing first, there was a question, Raj. There was a question from John on an issue. My Azure Arc SQL customers have his John. I'm not sure what that, but the SQL Advanced Protection. John, if you wanna unmute yourself for a second, maybe ask the question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Lior. So within the Defender for the Defender for Cloud environment settings portal page, the step to enable or to link a log analytics workspace and install the SQL Advanced Threat Protection solution within that workspace. It's presented in the Defender for Cloud portal as part of basically a Defender for Cloud task. But what we found is that that the just the presence of the solution installed in a connected log analytics workspace will install audits, will cause audits to be installed in SQL databases on Azure Arc servers, even when Defender for SQL is disabled for the subscription. So in a large customer scenario with multiple subscriptions and all sharing a single log analytics workspace, for example, for a Sentinel scenario, you end up getting the audits created in subscriptions where they shouldn't be created.
Okay. Yeah, I need to follow up on that. If you can send me an email, what is the desired expectation, desired scenario actually?
John, if you want, feel free to share with me or send me an email. You have my email, and I connect you with Raj for this one.
Yeah,
feel free
Will
to
do.
so.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need to
Thanks,
work
John.
through what is the desired behavior, and then we'll submit that request actually.
Thank you.
All right, I do wanna come back to the survey that Michael put on the chat. Again, I'll share the survey after the call, but if anyone's got any thoughts around what Michael was referring to based on priorities for engineering, whether you want us to look at, domain join servers or work group, what comes first for you, feel free to raise your hand and I'll, give you the mic. If not, no other questions were in the chat in today's call, but definitely, yeah.
For the Active Directory, if you're not comfortable speaking up, I reopened the Poly survey poll in the general channel for the community Teams environment. So I think it's going to be one of the latest posts. If you just go there, it's an easy way to find the link to that poll, and feel free to just submit your answer there. But if you'd like to talk about it, I would love to talk to you. And I'll also put my email address in the chat for the general channel, so everybody's got that if they would like to get some one-on-one time.
Thanks so much, Michael, and I'll work with you on making this broader as well offline.
Thanks.
All right, let's see if you have anything else on the chat. I don't think so. Anyone else got any questions? All right, going once, going twice. All right, like I mentioned.
I think I have. So can you hear me on
Cam.
this
Oh,
one?
sorry, Cam. I forgot to bring you over. Yeah.
No worries.
My bad.
So I had one tiny question about the management option that one of the great people from you was talking about as well, the management console that gives you the server management option that you can reach through the Azure Arc and manage the servers, even they don't have public IP address, as long as they can reach Azure Arc in this way. And he was mentioning about the old school still option of using remote desktop connection on web interface. So I was about to ask if you need something like a Bastion or other kind of stuff in that, or it's still providing the same option that you have on Azure Bastion directly via Azure Arc or not?
Yeah, so it's actually through Windows Admin Center. So if you look at the screenshot that Lior has here on the list of tools on the left, you'll see there's a tool called Remote Desktop. And so if you open that tool, what you'll get is an in-browser RDP session to your Arc-enabled server.
Yeah, just like we have on
Basically,
Bastion, right?
just like you have on Bastion, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was the only thing I was going to ask. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Cam, and sorry for forgetting to bring you over.
No worries. I should be reminding myself. Yeah. Okay then. Cheers.
All right. Thanks so much. All right. I don't think we have any other questions. Going once, twice. All right. Like I mentioned, the recording will be available in the GitHub repository and the deck as well. Thank you everyone for joining, and we're going to see you after Ignite with all the goodies that we're coming up with. Bye, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.